Spartans got the better of Bird on that day, winning the national championship. It was, of course, just the beginning of their rivalry that would define the NBA in the 80s and change absolutely everything. They would, of course, come together and win a gold medal on the Dream Team in 1992. But it got us to thinking. What were the 5 greatest individual rivalries that we've seen in basketball? That is the subject of today's Green List, and I really struggled with what to put at 5. And then I looked at some of the numbers, and I decided to put Shaq and Tim Duncan, because I ask you, they played against each other so many times. Who had the greater career? It is a really complicated question to answer. They met in the playoffs 5 times over a 6-season span. One of them won Finals MVP every year for 5 straight seasons from 99 to 2003. It is a rivalry that defined the era and maybe the last great big man rivalry. At number 4, Michael Jordan and Isaiah Thomas. If you know, you know. The history of it is overwhelming, and it carries to this day. Not just because of the legendary playoff meetings between Jordan's Bulls and the Bad Boy Pistons, not just because of all of the things that happened on the floor, but because of the freeze-out in the All-Star Game and then the freeze-out of the Dream Team. It is a rivalry that continues decades after their careers came to an end. At number 3, LeBron James and Steph Curry. Let's get the modern era into the conversation. These are the 2 faces of the sport and have been now for multiple decades. They met in 4 consecutive finals. Curry's Warriors snapped a 50-year championship drought in 2015. The following year, LeBron beat them when they won 73 games. They are the defining players of their generation. Number 2, I didn't want to go all Mad Dog Russo on you here, but you can't not include Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain. They met 143 times. In an 11-season span, Russell won 5 MVPs and Wilt won 4. They played each other in 8 playoff series in the 60s. Russell's Celtics won 7 of those 8. That's probably the reason I couldn't put them at number 1. It was so one-sided. And of course, Magic and Larry completely changed the sport, in some ways changed sports in this country as we know them. One or the other of them appeared in every NBA Finals in the 1980s, including 3 times against each other. Except for Michael Jordan in 1988, either Bird or Magic won every MVP from 1984 through 1990. Their rivalry completely changed sports, and they have to be at number 1 on this list. So there they are as I bring in the squad, and I think Bartholomew Scott wants to jump in as well, representing Detroit. You got Shaq and Duncan at 5, you got Jordan and Isaiah at 4, Curry, LeBron at 3, Russell, Wilt at 2, and the silhouettes of Magic Johnson and Larry Bird at 1. You were dying to jump in on this thing. Are you satisfied with where I put Isaiah Thomas?
No, never. Isaiah Thomas should be number 1 because you talk about the other 2 rivalries on that list. You can add Isaiah to that list as well. His best friend, Magic Johnson, hit him with the flagrant foul in the finals. 25 points in the 3rd quarter.
I understand.
You got to put Zeke up there more. And I got something to say to Gilbert Arenas because I usually don't do this, but he said something disrespectful about Isaiah not being, like that yesterday, talking about all that. Gilbert, man, you got 24 hours to apologize. We coming looking for you.
Isaiah,
don't play that stuff, bro.
I've said it a million times.
Spoke with Zeke.
Listen.
Play that Agent Zero. You're going to have to holler at me.
Isaiah Thomas does not have a bigger fan than me. I always said of all of the small players, until Steph Curry recently, I would have taken Isaiah number 1. You have to put Steph number 1 now. I would put Isaiah number 2. I'll take Isaiah on my team ahead of any of those other guys in my team will beat your team. Booze, the list, your reaction.
I love your list, honestly. I think at the time, Magic and Bird kind of saved the NBA, and they were dynamic and they were champions. I think MJ and the Pistons were terrific. I grew up watching Shaq and Timmy go at it, and I was there to see LeBron versus Steph Curry. So I think your list is money for me.
Talk to me, Jay Will.
I like the list, Greeny. Number 5, though, can I just, and granted, they didn't meet in the NBA Finals, but this one felt more personal as a rivalry, though. How about Shaq and Kobe? Like from teammates to rivalries and how they felt. What do you think about that one?
I considered it. I did think of it. I told you I agonized over 5. The top 4 I thought were fairly easy. I just had to figure out the order. Those were going to be the top 4. I did consider Shaq and Kobe. But what I thought about was, and obviously the excruciatingly tragic way that we lost Kobe, the way that they came together later in their life. It was clear, and the way Shaq spoke of him, I just thought it didn't feel right to me. I completely understand, Jay, the point that you're making. It just didn't feel right to me. Sometimes these lists exist. This will get posted later, right? And there won't be any context. It'll just show the names, and it'll just look off. But I certainly do understand the point you were making. It is an interesting question for those of us who are geeks about this kind of thing, and I very much am. Who had the greater career, Shaquille O'Neal or Tim Duncan? It is a fascinating and not easy to answer question. They were the two dominant bigs of their generation, and maybe the last time ever we see a classic rivalry like that of true bigs in the NBA.
Well, I mean, I think Shaq, from a dominant standpoint, I mean,
right?
That stretch from '99 to like 2003 was as good as any big man, just because we faced them in New Jersey in the finals.
Yeah.
But I think for Tim Duncan, it's the length of his career and
right.
how dominant that Spurs team was during that. But just going back to the list, just because I don't want Bart mad at me, I'm going to put Isaiah at number 1. I heard his name before we went on. I heard him before we went even live, and that scared me right there.
Isaiah and Magic. Okay, so we'll leave that there for the moment. Anyway, that's the list. Have at it. That's what these things are meant for. But in the end of the day, I'm right, and we all know it. One of their last 10, but tonight they will try and turn things around. They take on Indiana, 7:30 Eastern on ESPN. Lakers have allowed over 100 points each of their last 3, including a season-high 146 to the Bulls a few days ago. Booze and J. Will and Bobby. Quick takes here. Lakers have not looked just quite right since LeBron came back from the injury. J. Will, how concerned are we about the Lakers right this minute?
You know what? I know we live in this type of microwave society, Greeny. I am not concerned about the Lakers at all. I'm not going to allow short-term thinking to constantly mess me up on my long-term values of what this team. There was a 2-month stretch in which they were beating teams 500 or better, and their defensive rating was one of the best in the league. And this is a little bit of the issue when they're used to playing out in gaps. LeBron in the gap right there, and you're going to see Mattis knock down shots. The Bulls shot 58% from the field. And when they're not swarming around, and they're going to have some issues defensively in order to get back into those gaps, but it's only LeBron James' second game back, right? We're going to see his third game back tonight. I'm not as concerned because I think they're going to find their rhythm defensively, especially with the way J.J. Redick plays off targeted shooters that shoot lower probabilities. That's how they play. They're going to find their rhythm. They're still going to be an issue.
Booze, if I told you the Lakers are going to be the last team standing with OKC in the West, would you take that bet?
If Luka plays some defense, I think teams are targeting Luka. They put him in help side situations. I think we can't avoid that. He's got to show up in the playoffs defensively.
I wouldn't take the bet just because what you have to go through in the first 2 rounds to get to a Western Conference Finals.
So who is it you would like? I mean, you talked about Houston earlier.
Yeah, they're
in the West?
scary. I mean, Houston's scary just because they're so young, and they just, besides Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks, they just haven't been there. So you could see them losing in the first round, but you could see them winning the first round and then basically gaining momentum there.
A lot of it's going to be based on where the matchups fall. It could go almost any direction. The only thing that's locked in the West is that OKC is going to be number 1. Everything else is up for grabs. By the way, before you watch LeBron play tonight, you can listen to him talk on McAfee for over an hour today. He sat down LeBron James and Pat McAfee, an hour-long conversation. You will see it all on the Pat McAfee Show today, noon Eastern on ESPN. All right, LeBron James and the Lakers in Indy to play the Pacers tonight. Yesterday, LeBron sat down with Pat McAfee for over an hour. The conversation will air on ESPN today. Here's a little taste of the interview. LeBron talking about how he believes current players would fare in the NBA 50 years ago.
You trying to tell me Giannis wouldn't be able to play an NBA game in the 70s?
I think handshake, he wouldn't be able to do it.
Giannis,
neither would you. Neither would you.
Giannis Antetokounmpo would have 250 points in a game in the 70s. 250.
Is that Kuzi? When was Kuzi playing?
All right, so Kuzi played in the 50s and the 60s. So there were so many things about this conversation that bother me. And I understand what he's saying. First and foremost, of course, he's right. Giannis Antetokounmpo would dominate, as any athlete in the modern day would. There were a couple of things that bother me about this. In the interest of time, I will limit my comments to 2. One of them is the modern generation of player gets very, very sensitive when you compare them to players of the past. But they are very comfortable comparing themselves to player of the past. I don't love that inconsistency. The other part of it is, if all we're going to argue is players now are bigger, stronger, faster, more athletic, well, then that's the end of the conversation. The Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line in the 1970s, the heaviest guy weighed 275 pounds. What position would he play now? Linebacker? So, I mean, obviously, we've gotten bigger, we've gotten stronger. All of that is obviously true. But the idea, that feels very disrespectful to me. There were great players in the 1970s. And by the way, Bob Lanier in the 1970s would have picked up Giannis Antetokounmpo and dunked him. And then and Giannis would have been looking around saying, why isn't that a flagrant two? While he was flying into the stands. So, look, the players of today are brilliant players. Right. And I'm not taking anything away from them. And LeBron is on the very short list of the greatest players we've ever seen in the history of any sport in this country. But if the best argument you have is, well, look how much more athletic and skilled we are now, well, that's the end of any conversation, and it isn't an interesting one because it could be made for any sport at any time. The idea that those guys weren't great players then, as one who watched them play, it offends my sensibility. Go ahead.
No, I agree. I think this is just it's a silly argument. Like I talk about, back in the 70s, guys they had jobs in the offseason. Think about that.
Maybe not in the 70s, but at one time, yes.
No, but like there were guys who literally had, they don't do what we do now. Right. Like this is in today's modern sports era, along all of these sports leagues, guys train all year round. Yeah. All year round. Those guys they weren't doing the things that modern day players are doing. So I just think it's just a silly argument to try to, again, compare what these guys are now, skill-wise, it's body types and stuff, to guys that 20, 30 years ago.
Hey, way longer than that. Dr. Ernie Vanderway, who played for the Knicks, was a doctor and literally only played home games. He didn't travel with the team because he was a doctor.
Right.
And so to make a comparison between those obviously is nonsensical. It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
But I would just very quickly point out, Booz, when did you finish playing in the NBA?
2007.
How many commercial flights did you take during your career, traveling from one city? I mean, when I was covering the NBA in the 90s, I remember one time getting to O'Hare in the morning and seeing Karl Malone and John Stockton standing at a Cinnabon waiting to get their breakfast, and they were flying to another city and playing that night. I mean, the world was just a different place.
It's evolution, right? And it's like the specialization of sports. It's the best thing to happen to sports, and it's the worst thing to happen to sports, because back in the day when we were growing up, you used to play different positions, so you had different sports, so you had opportunities to develop different skills. But also you can talk about if these guys are bigger, faster, stronger, why aren't they more durable? Right, so it's that argument as well. Those guys played back-to-backs and were able to play longer and play through full seasons. I think it's a dumb argument, and I think it's something when your pride comes in. Sometimes you just have to honor the past and understand that you're standing on the backs of these guys that made the league easier for you, that made the money better for you, so you can't afford to have a chef and pay $2 million a year for your body. Right, so imagine if those guys were able to do that. Half those guys were smoking cigarettes at halftime.
Yeah, it was a different world. Jay Will, go ahead.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
We're not gonna allow, when you say durable now, like these guys are durable. They're smarter. There's data and analytics that suggest how you play due to the volume of basketball they're playing. Okay. When we say guys aren't playing back-to-backs, who are you referring to, Bart?
Well, I'm talking about sports in general, because I went 11 years, only missed one game, one practice. Now I see guys get a hangnail. They can't play.
Okay,
they
but
can't
I'm saying,
I'm talking about Nolan
I think
Ryan
this is a great thing
7 innings.
In the NBA, though. In the NBA, who are you referring to? Like, talk to me to players that don't play back-to-backs.
Well, let's not say back-to-backs. Let's say, playing the entire season, like Bridges, a guy who hasn't missed a game, the old AC Greens of the world, guys who can play that you can count on being in the lineup every game of the season, not guys missing 20 games a season. That's what I'm speaking of.
Okay, I'm just saying the majority of the guys in the league are playing a lot of the games. Like this narrative that we keep coming up with, the guys that don't play back-to-backs and everybody's on load management, that's only for a select few of individuals that all of a sudden we give this blanket narrative for. That's not for everybody that plays. So,
but they are the ones generally, Jay, I'm sorry, but they are the ones we care about, right? Like those are the ones that people are paying their money to see, and those are the ones that people are interested in. We're talking about like Giannis in the 70s. No one was concerned about the guys coming off the bench in the 70s, and that's not who they're concerned with now.
But wait, Greeny, if the players back in the 70s and 80s were getting paid the same way these players are, and they had access to the same information that these players do you not think they would be going about it differently?
The world has changed.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm just saying when I get triggered when I hear Bart talk about players aren't durable these days, and that's just a select few of people who have been injured and who are managing their injuries differently due to the data that we have now.
But I'm talking about sports in general. I'm not just talking about specifically basketball. I'm talking about my sport as well. We see guys missing a bunch of games. I played with London Fletcher. London Fletcher went 226 games without missing a game. I'm talking about guys like that. You see guys not being able to pitch as long as they used to, and we're supposed to be bigger, faster, stronger, but then they don't have the ability to put in the innings like Nolan Ryan, complete games and things of that sort. That's what I'm speaking of. If they're bigger, faster, stronger, why aren't they more durable? All right.
I'm on fire.